I need to replace the battery in my truck, and we're going to show you how we do this. This is a Toyota truck, and typically the nuts on the connections are 10 millimeter. You remove the negative battery cable first. Just put it off to the side. Now you remove the positive battery cable. We put the positive battery cable in a bag. We tied it off to these hoses and move it out of the way. Now sister's going to loosen the bolt and the nut on the battery bracket that holds the battery down. That's a 12 millimeter on those. At the bottom of that rod that holds the bracket on. That rod has a little J-hook at the end of it that fits into a hole on the frame of the vehicle. Once you remove the bolt and the nut from the bracket, you just take that bracket off. Now sister's going to remove the battery. She's going to pull it right up. When I purchased this battery, it didn't come with a strap or a handle to carry the battery. If the one you purchased doesn't have a handle, take the handle off your old battery and put it on the new battery. To get the handle off, use a flat screwdriver to push this tab in so that you can then slide the handle up and take it off. I weighed this battery and it weighs 35 pounds. So likely the battery you'll be working with will be anywhere from 30 to 40 pounds. So these can be heavy, just be aware of that. I took the battery tray out and cleaned it. It lifts right out. I cleaned it with some soap and water. If your battery clamps have corrosion on them, battery acid, that white stuff, here's how I'd clean that. I'd use some baking soda and warm water. That's what this is. Put the baking soda in, put a little bit of water in, mix it up, and this is the consistency you want. It's like a paste. When you clean these clamps with the baking soda mixture, you'll see a lot of fizzling or bubbles. That's the baking soda neutralizing the acid, the battery acid, on the clamps. You want a plastic basin or container under the clamp so that as that mixture with the battery acid flows down, it's caught in something like this. After you've applied it and let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes, use a cloth that's damp to clean it off. You don't want to use a wet cloth or water. If you're working on a battery or replacing a battery that has battery acid, that white fluffy stuff you see, you want to make sure you wear gloves and safety glasses. This baking soda is the same mixture I would use to clean the battery tray if it has battery acid on it. Before I put the battery back in, I'm going to clean the positive terminal clamp and the negative terminal clamp. I'm going to clean these clamps with this. It's a battery terminal and post cleaner. This tool has two purposes. This is the part of the tool that cleans the clamps. This is the part of the tool that cleans the posts on the battery. You use this end of the tool and put it directly into this clamp and turn it so that it cleans the clamp. So you have good connection between the battery and the clamp. You'll know it's clean enough if that metal inside the clamp is shiny. If you don't have this tool, use some emery cloth or sandpaper, fine grain sandpaper. After you clean these clamps, the metal on the inside of those clamps should look that shiny. I've put produce bags around the battery terminals and tied them back to these hoses so that it keeps both of these terminals out of the way as I'm putting in the battery. Going to remove the cap from the positive battery post and clean that post. I'm going to use this tool, the opposite end, to clean that post. Same thing to the negative post. Again, if you don't have that tool, use some fine-grained sandpaper. Now that I've cleaned both posts, I'm going to put the cap back on the negative just for safety. So remember, when you're removing the battery terminals or cables from the battery to replace it, you take the negative off first and then the positive. You put the terminals or cables back on in the opposite manner. You put the positive on first and then the negative. I use these battery felt pads. They have an anti-corrosion inhibitor on them. Before I put the clamp onto the post, I use either dielectric grease or I use this. It's a battery anti-corrosion inhibitor. So there's two schools of thought when it comes to the where and when to apply these anti-corrosion inhibitors. Some people apply the anti-corrosion inhibitor to the post and to the inside, right around there, the inside area of that clamp before they put the clamp on the post. Some people don't do that. What some people do is dry bolt this connection, the clamp to the post, before they put on an anti-corrosion inhibitor. Both of these products in the directions recommend that you apply the product to the post and to the inside of the clamp. So I called the Technical Support Division at Permatex and asked them to clarify the application of the dielectric grease when it comes to posts and terminals. The gentleman said that Permatex recommends a very thin coat be applied to the post and to the inside of the clamp before you put the clamp on the post and bolt it down. He said that if you put a thick coat on the post and the inside of the clamp, that can act as an insulator, and they don't recommend that. I have always, and I'm quite old, put a little bit of anti-corrosion inhibitor on this post and on the inside of this clamp before I put the clamp on the post. I've never had any corrosion buildup on either the post or the clamp. So now that you have that information, y'all have to decide which method you want to use. Either dry bolt on or apply a thin layer of dielectric grease or anti-corrosion inhibitor to the post and to the inside of that clamp before you put the clamp on the post. That's what I will be doing. I'm going to apply a thin coat of this dielectric grease to the post first. Now I'm going to apply it to the inside of that clamp, just a thin coat. You want to make sure the clamp on the post is pushed down. I keep the clamp pushed down as I tighten the bolt. Check and make sure the clamp is on tight and put the protective cover back on. I'm going to remove the cap from the negative side. If these felt pads make you nervous because they hold up the clamp a bit, then don't use them. I like to use them. A little bit of dielectric grease on the negative post. A little more for the inside of that negative battery clamp. Hold down the clamp and tighten it. Make sure it's on there snug. Don't over tighten, just make sure it's on there snug. Now we're going to put the bracket in. If you have any battery acid or corrosion on the bracket, you want to clean that with the baking soda water solution as well. I've got to put the J-hook on this rod in the hole down there. When you have that J-hook into that hole, keep upper tension on this rod. Pull it up, or that rod will just fall down. You want to leave this nut on the bracket a little loose so that you can line up the bracket with the hole for the bolt. You want to tighten the nut and the bolt a little bit back and forth so that as you're tightening this bracket, you're tightening it with even pressure. Now the fasteners on the bracket are tight. That's how I replace a vehicle battery. Hope it helps, and happy DIYing.